It's Framework. I am Al Schwartz. With me, as always, is John Bernard.
Hello.
And joining us once again, our recurring champion, Joon Kim.
Hi, Framework. I'm Joon.
Welcome back.
We're here to talk about Tokyo Vice.
Tokyo Vice.
Yeah.
Tokyo Vice, the new, I guess it's a Michael Mann series, although he directed only the first episode, correct?
Yeah, he's an executive producer. I'm unclear on how much of a Michael Mann project this is.
It had held the promise of a Michael Mann project, obviously from the name on down, that it seemed like, okay, this is a follow to Miami Vice, but we're going to Tokyo. It's based on a memoir by an American journalist who worked for a newspaper in Tokyo in the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. I don't know exactly what the stretch is there. It's one of those things where I'm avoiding learning about real life to remain spoiler free on the TV show.
Yeah.
I did not do that.
Yeah, you looked it all up.
I kind of did too. At the end, I was just like, well, I thought this was going to be a finished story, and it's not.
Me too.
So did I.
There's one thing to complain about that I find just absolutely just unforgivable, completely unjustifiable, is you're going to do the opening, like, in media res opening, and then the 2 years earlier flashback at the very top of the first episode. Like, already I'm like, we don't need to do that shit. Like,
I was ready to go with where they were. They're okay. It's Ken Watanabe and Ansel Elgort. They got to have a sit down with the Yakuza. Ooh, I'll find out what's going on from. Oh, nope, we're not doing that. Okay,
like the Miami Vice movie. It sort of drops you into the middle of, like, towards the end of an investigation. It feels like, yeah, I mean, and whatever, we could have done some flashbacks there, but if you're going to do that on a TV show, and then you're not even going to get back to that flash forward scene by the end of the first season, that is just completely, it should be illegal. Okay, so after the cold open, I got one other main complaint about the show, and it's kind of a big one, that it's one of those shows where, like, I'm really digging everything except for the main character.
Right.
Everything revolving around him. I'm just like, this. I mean, he's sort of like the connective tissue between some of these different, like, characters and storylines, but also, like, everything with him personally is the stuff I am least invested in by a pretty wide margin in the entire show.
His sister, his phone calls with his mom, his dad.
Man, that went nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It's like,
am I to really believe that anything in Missouri, happening in Missouri, is going to affect anything I care about in the show? Like, I just don't buy that.
I mean, maybe it'll, like, draw his attention at some point, and he'll have to go somewhere at some point in a future season. Maybe. Okay, so the thing about this character, Jake Edelstein, the character who it is based on the memoirs of, or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
There are so many reasons not to be on this character's side. Not least of which is that he's played by Ansel Elgort, who is just the worst part of so many things. Like, beyond the allegations against him, which are, fairly compelling. He's also just never been good in a movie that I can think of. Like, the specific ones that would be good movies where somebody else playing that role would be, what's the Baby Driver? And I believe West Side Story is a pretty damn good movie, but he's clearly, like, the weak link in it. I have no sympathy or desire to see him do a good job in a thing. The inconvenient truth of Tokyo Vice is I kind of liked his performance in it. I kind of think he worked in this role.
So do I.
He did a pretty damn good job.
See, okay,
and I feel the same way as John does about Elgort's career otherwise. Like, I've seen his big movies like Baby Driver and West Side Story, and in both, like, in Baby Driver is like, I guess he's fine, and in West Side Story, weak link, as you said. This one, I think that quality about him makes him really work in this fish out of water scenario.
Yeah, it's so easy to underestimate this character. It's so easy to just disregard him with his floppy hair and his backpack and suit.
Something about the way they shoot him too, as he's such, like, a tall guy generally, and he's, like, just is a full head taller than, like, almost everybody in when he's on the street or in the newsroom. At least I think some of the Yakuza guys are kind of tall, I guess, but it doesn't really, like, something about the way they shoot him doesn't sort of make him more imposing that way. It just makes him look kind of gangly.
Yeah, like
right,
big
right.
Goonie bird.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
the floppy hair adds to that somehow.
Yes, I think
And
that he's well used in that way. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Jake Adelstein, the character in this. You know, and I don't necessarily think I'm supposed to really love this guy. But as this sort of gaijin Western fish out of water that is our door into the world, I think he was all right. I think he's okay.
major props I got to give him to just the amount of Japanese he had to learn to actually do like the scenes in this series. Like it's really impressive considering how bad Hollywood productions usually are when it comes to gaijin learning another language in a foreign land.
He must know that now. He must have learned Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah, I think from what I've read, he had to learn like study like hardcore for like 4 months or something. So that he didn't have to learn lines phonetically, and he could actually, swerve a little bit to improv. Depending on how the scene went. Given how
Wow.
I assume like Michael Mann's shooting style.
Hmm. For one episode.
I would have said Michael Mann doesn't allow improv in his shooting style.
Oh, you think so? I mean, the shooting style is so like, so highly subjective, like so handheld, and even just the way like certain scenes are cut together, like even in that way, the material feels so like pieced together, like audio takes from different cuts and just different angles, and just being all mixed together in a way that feels very loose. So I could just kind of see that happening. I'm not
Hmm.
sure about Michael Mann's actual like how like you must stick to the script or anything like that. That part I'm not sure about
I'd
when
be
it comes to
curious.
Michael
When
Mann.
I think of Michael Mann, I think tightly controlled. Like in
Oh yeah, for
just
sure. But
rigorous in
right.
its execution, and so that leaves very little room for Apatow style improv.
Oh no, no, not
But
that kind of thing. But
yeah,
but like when it comes to like an actor, not because the Apatow is about all about like everybody just riffing to get the like
The
usurp each
funniest
other
take.
when it comes to
Yeah.
you're right, the jokes like for a intense scene, like let's like if an actor decides to try to to shift something up in the moment, the other actor needs to be able to keep up. I feel like Michael Mann would be into that kind of like controlled chaos.
I don't know. I feel like I could see
okay.
some movies that being the case, you know, like, I don't know, maybe Ali, maybe Insider, but some movies
Right.
very much not. Last of the Mohicans, you know, that,
No, yeah, not like
Yeah,
that.
you know, like, I don't know. I would have to rewatch a lot of Michael Mann movies if I were to figure that one out, I guess. Um,
yeah. It doesn't feel like anybody's really riffing on the set of
yeah.
Manhunter, but or it's Tom Noonan's really cutting loose there, having a grand old time. But this also circles back to the question of like how much of a Michael Mann project is this really? Because
Right.
as it goes on, it feels less like one.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, I mean,
and
immediately after the first episode, it doesn't feel like one.
yeah, well, and going back to the Jake character too, is he feels very much like not a Michael Mann protagonist in that he is not hyper
Oh,
competent at
right, right.
anything particular. Um, the only way he's like a Michael Mann character is that I guess he does karate. He's a reporter who does karate, and a man
Steven Seagal,
protagonist. Yeah, well, I mean,
Aikido.
it puts me in the mind of like Black Hat, how like Chris Hemsworth is a hacker with the physique of Thor, who also like studies
Right.
jujitsu or some shit. Uh, but
Underrated film. That's a good one.
we'll get to that one eventually. I'm sure. I don't know if we're doing Man next. We're going to find out shortly what
Yeah, right.
our next director is. But
That'd be pretty cool.
Hmm.
and I don't know. Again, I don't know if we would include this in the Michael Mann series if we were to do one because
Well, we're doing it now.
I
Yeah.
mean, I hope I hope he returns for second season episodes. I do want to see a second season because
Yeah.
complaining about Elgort aside, and I agree with you guys. Like, he doesn't strike me as a particularly nice person generally. I've only seen him in Baby Driver, and I thought he was fine in that, like pretty good. But I'm not super impressed with him here. And really, I'm just like I'm way more invested in everything going on with the Yakuza and the
Yeah.
police
Of
and
course.
Rachel Keller's host character.
I
Uh,
mean, that's why Adelstein is there. That's why he wants to go look into it. But we have to follow him.
yeah, and being a Bakagaijin myself, I think maybe I do need that sort of window into that. Like maybe you couldn't have dropped me into the deep end here of the Yakuza stuff, and I would not have been able to follow along if you had done that. But yeah, I don't know. I just we come back to him. I want to like hurry up through his scenes. And it's weird, like even like his buddies at the or not the magazine at the newspaper. Uh, those guys I find really likable, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
They're
they
good.
like when they're just hanging out with him. That's when he's at his best.
That's the funny thing about this series, though. Like, he goes out of his way to learn Japanese for the role, but then there's a lot of Japanese characters in this series that actually know English really well.
That resonated with me as somebody. done most of my traveling around like Europe, and trying to like learn some language there and practice it. And I would just go into a place when I was in college, or wherever, and like ask a question in broken Italian, and then invariably they would just respond in perfect English.
Oh, yeah.
Ah,
Don't,
fuck,
don't,
I'm
don't.
never even going to get off the training wheels here.
It's like, don't bother. We'll take care of you.
But I understand that Japan's not quite as maybe not as inviting to foreigners as some of mainland Europe could be.
If it's anything like Korea, where like everybody is like, there's always English learning classes. Clearly, like there's a whole, like they're incentivized to learn English, but I still doubt that he'd be able to speak to English like every reporter, every cop, and every yakuza can speak to him like perfectly, like no problem English. Like they're
It's almost a
totally
surprise
set.
that there is as much Japanese as there is in this, considering how much English they're throwing in. It feels like half and
Right,
half.
right. Yeah,
Not
it does.
really with a lot of
I'd say it
rivalry.
tilts a little more to Japanese.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, if
I'd say it's 60-40 at least.
something
Like if it's any scene that involved that doesn't have Jake Adelstein in
Right.
it, then it's just straight up Japanese.
or
So, I feel
what's
like
her Samantha, having
Oh,
two
right.
major white characters from America to to base narratives around helps you in that regard, I guess.
I was gonna say I thought it was like mostly Japanese, but maybe it's just that the scenes that I'm paying attention to are the Japanese ones.
Right.
But anyway, but I do like the Samantha character for
Yeah, she's interesting.
as the other
the Joni Stubbs
Gaijin.
plot line is how I think of that.
Yes, very much.
In fact, that's kind of how I ended up feeling about this show. Is just it's pieces of other HBO prestige shows. There's definitely some Wire.
Certainly.
There's definitely some Sopranos in here, and yeah, that's the Deadwood part, the Joni Stubbs plot line in Samantha and her. What do they call them? Hospitality,
The hostess
clubs.
But-
Yes. What a weird cultural
Hostess clubs,
thing
yeah.
that we just don't have any sort of corollary for here, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's the
I guess it's
champagne room
like-
and strip clubs, I guess.
Yeah,
Is that sort of what
sorta.
it's like? I don't know.
Sort of.
That was one of my big takeaways here, like learning about the culture of Tokyo. Was like, oh man, Japan people just love getting fucked up on champagne.
Yeah.
Like the hangovers must be vicious.
It's so funny to watch this series after like I've played the Yakuza.
I
games?
was thinking of the Yakuza games a lot during this series.
I'm watching this. He was like, I think I've been there. I've been to that club in that game. Like clearly, there's a very specific like house style when it comes to these hostess clubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
I
playing
never-
all those mini games where like you got to make sure that sell them the priciest champagne. It's like, yeah, I got it.
I never played those games, but it would not shock me to learn that actually, like Adelstein's memoir was like a source that the American or designers referenced to.
That series does not have. I think it's a fully Japanese production. So I think they're.
Oh, it's fully, okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a Sega Japan. Like I don't think this is those games are have anything to do with a U.S. team.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just a translation. Then that's the only time.
Yeah, it's just localized for here. Yeah.
Somewhat. Yeah.
Are they good?
They are good.
Oh yeah, they are. They're good. They're a lot of fun.
It's kind of like honestly, it's like playing this show. A lot of it. Like
But without Jake.
without
Jake
Jake,
Adelstein.
you're just Sato. Except you're not even Sato. You're like a way cooler guy than Sato.
Like the ultimate,
Yeah.
Oh.
cool Yakuza,
Yeah.
hero.
It's
Oh, but Sato's great. I love
He's
Sato.
good, yeah.
He's so cool.
he's D'Angelo Barksdale. He's he's I don't know. He's not cut out for the life. This is my take. He's obviously I think
I think that's they're playing with that, but I think he is more capable, like at least physically, than D'Angelo Barksdale ever was. Like,
perhaps. Mhm.
I mean, we could still be seeing a rise to power storyline from him. I mean, maybe you guys know how this is all going.
No.
In the way that I don't, but
Everyone's
this part is like
it's-
it's fictionalized.
It's
heavily.
all fictionalized. That's the thing. None of these are real people. They're composites. Nozawa, or is that the guy's name? The bad Yakuza. He's
Tozawa?
Yeah, he's very clearly based on a character in Adelstein's story. But like, they all kind of have somebody they're supposed to be, but they're not that person. And I think Sato is the least explicitly a person. I think this is very much a composite, or even a creation.
Are you telling me? Are you telling me that the real life reporter did not karate fight a pair of Yakuza assassins in his apartment.
I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe
maybe
maybe that would be.
maybe in his
Yeah.
memoirs. I think he in the memoirs he did. There is mention of him fighting a bodyguard or something. But I think I'd link you guys the piece, like the a Hollywood Reporter piece, saying like the guys who know Adelstein say like, yeah, we love the guy, but he's kind of full of shit.
Yeah, well, this is one of those based on a true story things where I could just kind of, without doing any research, just tell 10 minutes into it, like, okay,
Right.
this is based on a true story, like Amityville Horror is based on a true story, right?
So it's really about that the peek into the world and the research that is kind of the like just the jumping off point for a series. But like any notion that this all happened is just not, it's never there.
I mean, to some extent, I almost wonder, like, why are we tying this to any sort of real life events? That's not really what I want from this. I kind of want like full on Yakuza gang war, the life. That all that, and here's our window in the hostess clubs. Here's our window in the police department. All this stuff. Why bother with Edelstein? Well, I guess because you need a guy Jin to sell this in America. But like, that's like you say. It's kind of I want this to have more bullshit in it. I want this to feel like a Yakuza game. I want this to be that experience. That's and maybe that is me being prosaic or just dumb, but like I want the more entertaining one version of this that is less worried about authenticity.
Such entitlement.
Yeah.
So disappointing.
I'm totally with you, John. Like, I feel like if you usually want to use the memoir as like a basis to draw from, like, you don't need to call him Jake Adelstein. Make him like Jack Abramson, so that you have a little more license to just like, we're not sticking too closely to the facts.
Agreed.
We're just, or like, honestly, going back to Deadwood, we were talking about the way that like there's real historical figures in that, but it's not beholden at all to like rigorously following what happened to those people on certain dates.
They use it when it's useful to them, and like and that's what they should be doing here, and maybe that is what they're doing here. To be honest, I don't know, but I do feel like especially in the early going, I don't need this much about how it works the newspaper. Like I don't need to see this. I'm much more interested in the things that are very dissimilar. I mean, basically if Rinko Kinkuchi is in the newspaper scene, I'm into it. If not, I'm just like tapping my fingers, and she gets more involved later on. So it really improves as it goes, wouldn't you say? This show?
I don't know.
I'm mixed on that.
Well, because I had felt the frustration the sharpest in the finale, realizing that they weren't going to actually play like, oh, we're not getting anywhere. Yeah. So all you've done with that cold open is like show me that like Ken Watanabe is going to survive this very tense scene that you're placing him into. Like,
he could have been a one season and done. He could have been like
certainly
like a shocking death at the end of the season that would have been like, oh, what now? And that's not happening because of the future thing.
Yeah, that catalyzes Jake's drive to really like.
I don't want that either. I really wouldn't like.
Don't you fridge Ken?
Yeah, Ansel's coming back, not Ken. That's not good. So I'm glad they didn't do that. I suppose. I mean, honestly, I just want Ken Watanabe to star in the show. Like, he's who I want to follow. I want the show to be about Tokyo Vice. I want to watch the cops deal with the Yakuza. That's kind of the best stuff. And yes,
I want Sato to be the lead.
I understand that too.
Which totally he is. Often the show does feel like he is the lead. Like especially when like clearly was it Samantha? Like Samantha is clearly like a love interest for the lead characters, but then when she is like totally into Sato, and Jake Adelstein is just kind of like standing there. It's like, what happened? I was cracking up.
Yeah, that was good.
I think he's kind of like, oh yeah, I get it. Like that dude's sexy.
It's like, jeez, I can't compete with that.
Yeah. And he tries though, and he tries by doing that shitty nice guy thing of being like, well, he's bad for you. It's dangerous.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Sato's over here going, "I'm bad for you. It's dangerous."
He brings her a box of Japanese sweets.
I'm bad. I'm bad for you. I'm dangerous, but here's a Japanese omelet.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to kill.
Which is a very nicely Michael Mann feeling scene.
You're right.
In a non-Michael Mann episode.
That did feel mannish.
Yeah.
It felt not. The only thing about the romance plotline felt not Michael Mannish in that it took them like more than one date to fully fall in love. But that cooking that omelet scene really goes a long way to selling that connection, and it looks delicious.
Yeah.
It does.
I mean, he
I
does.
has that, do you guys know that guy from anything else?
No.
I don't. I think he's there like local to Japan. Like I think they're established. But since I don't follow Japanese cinema that much, I don't. I think this is the first time I've seen him. Aside from, I think Ken Watanabe is the only one I would know.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to having him pop up in something like if he God make him the villain in Shang-Chi too.
Yeah, sure, something like that. I mean, I assume he's going to be around now. Like he's clearly a charismatic guy who
Right.
can kick ass and hold the frame and all that and do dramatic scenes. He's
He's got a great face too.
clearly the
Yeah.
protagonist
Initially, like,
of the show.
yeah.
I would. They just forget that a lot of the time.
Interesting thing to me is like it just in terms of just the kind of faces I would expect to become like be leads or stars. The first time Sato is introduced, he's got a very like intense stare, so I figured he'd just be a like straight up bad guy because we don't know him yet. And like a character like the cop Miyamoto more has a style that looks like he would be a lead.
I liked him,
but no, the show flipped. The show flipped that expectation on me, and Sato is I get more and more attached to Sato as he goes on because he just kind of peels away the layers and just shows more of who he is.
Miyamoto.
I like both those guys.
Miyamoto is
Yeah,
cool
they're both great.
as hell. I love that character. That was great. Everything about him was really
You are
good.
extraordinarily beautiful.
Is he dead? He's dead,
Yeah,
right?
he's the one that
No, probably not.
Yeah,
they
sounds
sort
like it, but we haven't
Yeah,
seen
we
it.
haven't seen it.
So
I don't know. They were heavily implying that like Sato's clearly alive,
Right, yeah.
Like
Why
Yeah.
even do
you
that?
leave a character in a pool of their own blood. Like we know how TV works.
Mhm.
That's not a death. But Miyamoto. I mean,
there's a
Tozawa
in a
was
way-
certainly talking about him like he was dead.
Yeah, like there's a No Country for Old Men development ish. That's the feeling I got. It's like, oh, we're just like skipping over what happened to him, but it's like
Yeah, I mean, but Miyamoto's also
right.
not like such a main character that it's
Right.
like completely disorienting that way.
Right.
But they're going for sort of like a big twist there by revealing it in the Watanabe scene instead of in the Miyamoto scene, I guess.
Right.
I guess.
Which I just can't think of Watanabe as anything but Watanabe. His name's Katagiri, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, he's playing Watanabe.
Yeah, Watanabe.
He's doing his thing, and
Yeah.
I wanted more of him here. Like I feel like they didn't quite know how to deploy him.
It feels like they elongated this so much that they found they didn't have as much for him to do in this first season as they would have liked. That
Yeah.
by if, in the version of this where they actually circle back to that opening scene, I think he's probably more involved consistently.
Right.
But it seems like they're sort of spinning wheels, just wanting you to know he's there, but have not gotten to the point where they can really deploy him yet. Is at least the vibe I get.
That could be.
Yeah, it only gets real for him in the final episode.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, dude.
Which is it gets you're suspicious the moment. It's like they're really focusing on his relationship with his family and how happy it is. I'm getting worried. I'm getting worried.
Never good.
Yeah, there's a little McBain vibe there with how cute those girls are.
Yeah, not something you want to have attention drawn to in a Yakuza story, probably.
No. Oh man, but okay. Then on the Yakuza side of things, I think they did quite a job of making Tozawa into a just full on like satanic villain figure.
Yeah.
Comes in at the end, and in a big way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even halfway through when they're uncovering like their suicide insurance scheme, which is one of the most like dastardly, organized crime scams I've ever heard of. Like it's so evil. And I wonder. I mean, was that part of the real memoir? I kind of assumed.
It feels like it would be.
I think it was touched upon, but as I said, the memoirs are just kind of episodic for like different segments, and that this show kind of compiles into one plot. But I can't remember. I'm still listening to it. I can't remember for sure if that specific, drive to suicide for the insurance payout plot was in the book, but it probably
felt like that got dropped a little, honestly, as the season went on.
It feels like this first season kind of abruptly dropped several things. Like it also dropped the investigator that was following Samantha. I thought that was going to continue.
Well, he did get killed.
Sato killed him.
Right. So I
Yeah.
thought that it was just going to, because there was also the indication that he also has Yakuza connections. So I thought it was going to stretch that out to make things more difficult for Sato. But nope, just brutally take him out and then live with how that changes their relationship. But I was kind of more interested in seeing how that would play out if he had to actually kowtow to this guy.
I'm hoping that Mormon enforcers show up in season 2. That would be more Mormon shit, please.
When do you fight the Mormon mafia? Like, is that Yakuza 3 in the video games?
That'd be amazing. That seems more like a Saints Row thing, but I haven't played
It
that.
does. You're right. I think some of that, like, I think the investigator is probably a done thing. Like, that was just to
No,
drive
yeah.
that relationship apart.
Mhm.
And I guess
Right.
push her back towards Adelstein, which yay.
What a
But
powerful romantic triangle.
oh yeah, it's something kind of funny to me about when love triangles are just completely unbalanced in one direction. But anyway, I think like the suicide investigation thing might be coming back. Like I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I think they sort of hit a wall with the newspaper with that, but I don't know that Rinko Kikuchi has given up on that entirely.
Right.
That seems
maybe
like
we'll see
her
next.
path forward narratively, I would think. I mean, that
Yeah.
seems like it's her thing, or should be anyway. And
yeah. So one thing I didn't follow entirely about her. So is she's a Korean living in Japan?
She's a part Korean.
Oh.
I believe.
Or she's born there, but her parents are from Korea. Is that?
I think so, something like that. I forget because there's a scene where she speaks. She says her like It's weird. When she does speak Korean, I thought it sounded like her mother was from Korea, but the subtitle said that her grandmother was from Korea. So I mean, either way, she has Korean connections, but I think she otherwise, she is Japanese, for the most part. But what I did like about this series was that like it had those touches where the hostess clubs are full of women from other countries, and there are people that references to Koreans living in Japan. It felt very expansive in a way that I really appreciated. Like it felt real, like
studied
the verisimilitude of it.
It really feels like it was portraying a sort of melting pot culture that I imagine would be taking place in Tokyo. A lot of different parts of Asia.
It's not as homogenous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as homogenous as people just kind of assume like a place like Japan to be.
Yeah. I mean, even the presence of the gaijin makes sense in that context. Having the two white guys there, still that's part of that. I mean, it's any major city, especially a major city like Tokyo, that would be part of the narrative, and that's cool. That it feels authentic. It makes the show feel more authentic, even as it is kind of a Yakuza game in some ways. It is very studied as well. I mean, it knows how a newspaper runs. It knows how a hostess club runs, and the kind of people that work in them, and where they're all from. That's like one of the best things about this show is how authentic it feels, even as it's doing crazy shit.
Right. So it's like if the broad strokes of Adelstein, whether his stuff is BS or not, I feel like this show that will still try to do its own research into stuff to add those textures and details that make it feel like this isn't just just tourism.
Yeah.
At least not overtly.
Not the bullshit version of the Yakuza that I kind of want. Yes.
Right.
It makes it better though, that this stuff does improve it. Yes. Just want a little bit less behold.
Which is
that's sort of the vibe I was getting, like, and without having anything really to pin it on, it was just like I kind of have this gut feeling that okay, a lot of these events are bullshit, but the settings feel pretty grounded and researched, and I mean, the Backstreet Boys stuff is such a great way to place it, like in time and place. Like
it's weird because when I was watching that specific episode, I forgot that this took place in 1999, and for some reason, I kept having in my head that this was set in the 80s because I think I saw a photo of Adelstein in the 80s or something. I can't remember, but I was
maybe even just Tokyo Vice and Miami Vice, like
maybe. So or the fact that Japan was such a force in the 80s. I might have just been complaining a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so when I saw some of the investigator using a DSLR, I was like, I was posting this on Trouble City, like. Did Japan already have DSLRs in the 80s? Like, I know they had HD TVs like way earlier than anybody else, but then they started singing Backstreet Boys, and I was completely thrown off.
Yeah, they had Backstreet Boys like a full 8 years before us there.
Yeah. They are ahead of the game on everything. My God.
That's why the one of the Backstreet Boys showed up looking like he was 47 years old.
Oh, Matrix. They do this with Matrix too. They're talking about having just seen the Matrix in one scene.
Oh,
No,
that's
that's
right.
right.
That's
Yeah,
right. Are you
yeah.
blue pill or red pill? It's like just get the fuck to work.
I was like, did we really not think we had to rewrite that scene like that? Just are you blue pill or red pill has such a different context in
I know.
2022 than it would have in 1999.
What a
Um,
time capsule.
yeah. Anyway, one other thing that I thought was interesting that they only got into it at the very end of the season was a sort of revelation to me that like, oh, they also have host clubs, like
Right.
not just
Yeah,
hostess
yeah, yeah,
clubs, but like there's a male version of this. Like
yeah, yeah.
I'd gotten that Paulina's boyfriend was sort of like a street like gigolo type. They seem to be working the street in a way that the hostesses have this whole setup at the bar. But they mentioned host clubs too. So is there a whole
Yeah.
other like male version of that there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to look that up actually. I was very curious, and yeah, it's there. It's not. It's nowhere near as prevalent. It's the Playgirl to the Playboy magazine. You know, like
Sounds
it's
like
it's there. It's less of a thing, but it's part of
Yeah, well, that's how it always is in
yeah.
America. That there's male hustlers and Playgirl magazine, but it's not nearly as I don't know industrialized as the whole complex for uh, you know
Mhm.
exploiting young women.
and that's how Akira does the sneak attack.
Yeah.
Which that was a development I found just really funny.
That was weird. Like on the one hand, I'm like, okay, I buy that Samantha was just kind of desperate and
Yeah.
not thinking entirely clearly, but also like, okay, it turns out it's a scam by Akira. Like that's a better version than what you're really worried about, which is that this is actual kidnappers that are going to show up with like actual guns and kill people. Like, how are you not going to Sato with this? Uh,
Right, right.
like, I know they had their breakup, but like, you're willing to risk your entire savings and your club that you built him, but you're not willing to like go back to your ex boyfriend to be like,
You'll trust this
hey,
guy who like referred to Paulina so dismissively
yeah.
initially. You're just gonna trust him.
Well, she
I
never really
really,
trusted him. I buy
I
that
know.
she was desperate enough to go to kind of like that. She felt like she had to try anyway. I just feel
Right.
like you had Sato involved in this whole Paulina like investigation already. Like, how are we? I don't know.
It just wasn't the same after he smashed in that investigator's face.
So, is- to this point, the Samantha plot line in this, every other plot line feels very deliberate, um, slow paced at times. You know, like it's gonna unfold at the pace it's gonna unfold. The Samantha plot is just a whirlwind of events and activity and changes and things and reveals, and it's like moves crazy compared to the rest of them. There's so much more
It
going
does,
on
yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and just per episode you get like 5 developments in the Samantha plot line everywhere. And I was like, all of a sudden she's a Mormon and she stole money from the like, and all this stuff is just like, whoa, oh, you're not who I thought you, oh my god, whoa, now you're dating Sato. And it's whiplash with the rest of the series. It kind of gives her scenes a spark, like, yeah, I kind of perk up when she's there because something's gonna happen.
And
But
she's such a what is it? Oh, I can't think of the word. She's so impulsive that way and she doesn't apologize for like her immense mistakes either. So it makes her like frustrating, but also fun to watch that way. It's like I'm trying to help you. Fuck you.
But she also has a better idea of what she wants than Jake. Like Jake
Yeah.
wants to do reporter stuff, but he's not entirely sure what that amounts to. Like
Mhm.
because he has to uncover what this story is before he could really like figure out what to do about it or how to report on it. But she knows exactly what she wants in any given scene, and that could change wildly from scene to scene within one
Right,
episode.
right.
But she moves with a purpose, which I guess is that's a Michael Mann protagonist trait as well.
That's what I was thinking.
They're
Like she's
driven.
got an obsession. They're like focused.
She was the most Michael Mann feeling character in the whole thing, honestly, to me. Sato and Katagiri are Michael Mann types, but she felt very, very much like Michael Mann stuff. Even if I guess she wasn't much, really. Like, I can't say.
It's like Adelstein is asking her all these questions, and Samantha is just kind of like, oh, why are you asking me so much about what I do? Getting all Neil McCauley, even though she's a hostess club, she works at a hostess club, so she has to be,
I love
Yeah,
watching her blow
facilitating
people off. They're just like, no, fuck you,
But
shut up.
in the context of this, that is her job. Then she's very good at her job because that's a Michael Mann trait.
Yeah, That's true.
And then it's more like she's like, "Why are you making me work off the clock? Like I have to
Yeah.
make small talk over drinks like as my 9 to 5 or
It's like buy me dinner
5
first.
to, yeah. Um,
Make me an omelet.
oh man, just make me one of those omelets. I'll tell you anything. Like they look delicious. All right. So for the next season, I mean, we're hoping the Yakuza stuff really like amps up more, right? That's
For
the
sure.
Oh
that
yeah.
For sure.
we've been promised a war between
Ishida and
uh,
Nozawa.
Ishida and Tozawa. Yeah. Ishida really seemed like sort of like the kinder, gentler gangster up until about the final episode where
Oh no, yeah.
they
They're
started
all
getting into.
awful.
Yeah, I mean, when you can stand next to Tozawa, you're going to look good no matter who you are.
Right. It's like it's basically like the Godfathers. Like
Right.
Yeah.
things used to have. We used to have a code. Like that code is pretty shitty still.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't want you to sell drugs, all that. He's very like the old school guy whose honor is going to take him down. It's very typey, with Ishida.
Yeah.
He looks cool.
Well, he objects. It's not just the drug things. He objects to the suicide scam.
Yeah, it's
which,
bad
I'm like,
business.
that-
Bad business.
Yeah, and it's not the path.
Does he actually
But-
ever object to that specific thing? Does
He
I'm
says
kind
he
of
doesn't
curious to
like
see
it
about
much. He's kind of just like, yeah,
that. Oh, okay.
yeah, that's not very cool. When Jake brings it up
I
to
mean,
him.
Yeah, you can interpret it as he's just sort of trying to. It's a snow job for Adelstein because he's trying to convince Adelstein to like give him information because
Yeah.
whatever you think of me, Tozawa's way worse. Like look at what he's doing
Right.
here. That's so bad. And you could say that maybe that was insincere, but it bought Ishida a couple of episodes of worth of sympathy for me, or at least like looking at him as. I mean, I was like, okay, if I know enough about crime fiction generally and Michael Mann also that if he is trying to be a principled gangster, like clearly it's just he's going to have a downfall.
Right.
But it seemed like that this switch in the finale is more like, oh no, he's actually not even that principled, right? He's still like real bad news for Samantha. Like he's going to be a villain in that Joni Stubbs storyline going forward.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that's very, very, very Tony Soprano in that way. It's just like, oh yeah, he's kind of the guy we like, but then, oh yeah, you don't want to be in that position with him. You do not want. Yeah, that seems like a really bad idea there. You're probably fucked because of that. So more.
Yeah, you want to hang out with him. If you're in business with him, you're in real trouble.
Yeah. Speaking of season 2, do we think there's going to be a season 2? Clearly, there want there to be a season 2.
Right. I actually have no idea if it's actually been approved to have a season 2. I don't know how these HBO Max shows work.
Yeah. I hope so. It can't be cheap.
Can't be.
Is part of it.
And the way this was released, very weird release strategy. It felt like they were just dumping it all out in April because it was like 2 or 3 episodes a week, and they were done in 4 weeks. I mean, I understand.
Oh, is that the case? I guess.
Yeah, kind of.
I didn't realize how much time, because I just kind of watched them as a clump initially. I didn't watch all of them like week to week. I thought it was week to week, but I guess
Yeah. Well, I did too because I thought
we're
I had
releasing them
more
2 at a
time.
time.
I thought I would have like 2 months, 3 months to kind of get through this, and then it's like, oh no, it's all done. Yeah, the last episode is up this week. It's like, oh shit, I got to watch half the series then. And I understand if people maybe don't feel like being in the Ansel Elgort business right now too. So I think it's possible that this show just disappears, and I hope that it does come back because I want a Yakuza show in my life, and this feels like it is now positioned to be that Yakuza show. Narratively, it kind of got where I wanted it to get at the end.
How has HBO Max generally treated its shows? Do they do the Netflix thing where they just quit on them if it doesn't work out, or have they been a bit more nurturing when it comes?
It's a little new to say.
I think. Yeah, HBO Max has not been around long enough, and it's been during COVID times, so like nothing's really at there's no equilibrium that we can really balance anything against. HBO generally tends to give some more rope to its creators,
except for specific moments. That
yeah, well, like their last Michael Mann series,
yeah,
the horse racing show that they canceled quickly. But I think it would be a shame to lose this because you're right. It's now got set up everything to be the Yakuza show that we kind of want it to be, and it was like, it was that show 40% of the time this season. But it feels like it's ready to make like a leap in that direction. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you can't kill off Jake Adelstein, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You could recast him
I wonder if
if
anyone would
that's
be
the
Who's
deal.
bothered by
another
that. I mean,
Who's another tall,
mhm.
gangly guy who who can speak Japanese in scenes?
It's probably harder than you
I mean,
think.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I figure I doubt that. I feel like if Elgort goes, the whole show goes. I don't know if that's accurate, but it seems
I think
Yeah.
he's listed as a producer
yes.
on this,
Hmm.
so I don't know what that exactly means, but it's enough to he got that
Well,
title.
I don't actually. I mean, currently, my thinking is not. Oh, that's they're going to cancel it based just on that
No, it wouldn't
because
just be
like
on
No,
that.
they went
Yeah.
forward with this like knowing about him. Maybe it was like already in production, but they still gave him the producer credit.
Hmm.
They still put him center of the screen. They didn't like drop him and recast when it was in production or anything. So barring any new revelations, I'm not sure that's gonna be it. But if it's sort of on the borderline, yeah, like it's not doing them any favors.
No, and
Um,
yeah, who knows how much people are watching this? I don't know how those things are tabulated
yeah,
anymore.
no idea.
It does not seem to have maybe the cultural stamp. It doesn't seem to be
yeah,
spoken of much online in the way something like I don't know, Mayor of Easttown was. It's not a breakout hit for them, and yeah, I'm a little worried about their release strategy for it. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of why I was thinking this would be a limited series. Like this would be a closed loop thing that
Yeah,
finished in
that's
8
what I thought. That's
episodes,
what I thought too.
but it wasn't. And they
Not
clearly
in the
have
least.
aspirations to be a whole run show. So
I think we'll have an idea of what that reception was actually like at HBO if it turns out that it comes back for a second season that is like 3 episodes and the last one's 90 minutes. And that's like
I mean,
closing it off.
if
I would
it's
probably
good,
be okay with.
yeah.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be distraught by that. I just think, and I don't know. I think there's enough there. Like you got Ken Watanabe, you got Rinko Kikuchi, who I think is has a fan base,
Yeah,
and
she's good.
I mean, I wonder if this is popular overseas, more so in America, or
I would be interested in
I have
knowing
no
that.
idea.
more so than Mayor of
Mhm.
Easttown is.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it
I
shares
think
that
it's actually
kind
also
of cultural, like the window into this particular place kind of thing that Mayor is doing. That's sort of part of their business model. It feels like, and so it fits in so many ways. It's just not really getting the red carpet rolled out for it in the way that you would expect for something that looks so expensive and is good. It's not like
yeah,
a shitty show.
yeah,
I mean, I guess I could see how they're. I don't know. I mean, they're treating it not unlike how they're treating the new David Milch thing. Although that at least is getting a weekly release schedule.
You mean David
Yes,
Chase?
David Chase.
Yeah,
Excuse me. We built this city. What is it called? We own this city.
we
Yeah,
own this city.
haven't got to it yet. Will
We own the city on rock and
we
roll.
own the city and
Yeah.
rock and roll? Okay.
Anyway, the other thing that we haven't talked about greatly, but I also think this is a good time to be in the Rachel Keller business. That she seems poised to me like she could become a movie star. She's like under 30, very, I think, very talented. She's been good in a couple of shows I've seen her in, and
This was my first exposure to her. What else was she in?
she was in Legion or not Legion. She was like the female lead
wow.
of
Okay.
the like X-Men thing on
I never
FX,
watched
sort of very tangentially X-Men. And she was in season 2 of Fargo. Was the first thing I ever saw.
Who was she in that?
Same creator. She was the daughter of the Gerhardts that was fucking around with Bokeem Woodbine.
Okay.
And,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I mean, like the 11th lead of that very crowded season,
Right.
but she still stood out enough that when she showed up on Legion, I was like, oh, great, her again. And I don't know if she has aspirations to be a movie star, but you could put her in a Marvel movie. I think she'd do just fine.
She has a very good look, very elastic look. Because she looks like for the first half of this season, this show, she looks so like exactly what she presents as the
Glamorous.
and then all of a sudden, Midwest Mormon girl, and it's completely convincing. That
She
was cool.
reminds me of a mix between Elizabeth Shue, young Elizabeth Shue, and Rebecca Ferguson.
Young Elizabeth Shue, I definitely see in there. Like that's a very good call. But you're right. That's the thing is she can do the very glamorous, but she can also like pass for a human being in a way that not all Hollywood stars can.
Well,
That maybe Jennifer Lopez can't quite pull off.
this should be a plus up for her career. I mean, it's a major role, and
Yeah.
she acquits herself very well in it, and shows what she can do. If enough people are watching it, I'm sure this gets her more work because she's got what it takes clearly. So
Even if the show goes away, I wouldn't be surprised if she pops up in another HBO show like pretty quickly.
Also put in the work to learn the Japanese. I think I don't think she knew Japanese initially either. So once again, another one where I'm really impressed.
Japanese not easy
And
to
I
learn.
say this as somebody who has
for
never
a Western
who
mind,
only learned Japanese in high school. So I just have a little touch of it. It's not like I speak it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an ear for this stuff at all, but she sounds convincing to me.
So, I'm talking on my ass if I praise anyone's pronunciations. I've heard good things from people who know.
She just seems comfortable doing it. I guess maybe that's all it is.
Right.
Maybe it would sound like a cartoon if I actually was born and raised in Japan. But anyway, so yeah, I'm looking forward to some more of this. If we can get it. I want Watanabe to get his chance to actually take over the show from Adelstein.
That would be cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If he becomes sort of
or Sato does Sato and the Sato and Watanabe show.
Yeah. Well, Sato already kind of did for half of the season, I feel like.
Right. No, but instead of teaming up with Adelstein, Watanabe teams up with Sato. I'll watch that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's kind of that. Everyone would like that. I think that's sort of that would be the most fun possible thing that this could do. Would put those two together and have them do shit. That's kind of where it should go. I mean, Adelstein can follow along and ask questions. He can be, he can be the Alexander Knox of Tokyo.
That's not
all right.
Whenever it's Rachel, the two, Gaijin, in their scenes together, when there's no Japanese people present, it feels like a completely different show. I feel like I'm watching a kid's detective show for a second. And they're like, we're getting high together.
I like when he's.
I actually liked that weirdly comic interlude there.
Right. Oh, let's get out of here. Oh no, it's this way. All right.
He's just doing headstands on meth all of a sudden, like that. It doesn't really fit the tone of the rest of the show, but I was like, all of a sudden, I didn't mind hanging out with Adelstein for that time.
Right.
But we've started mentioning Robert Wool, which is usually the time when we bring an episode to a close.
Time. Yeah, that's
in the framework. Thanks, Joon. We'll see you soon. I'm sure.
Yeah. For Tokyo Vice season 2.
If it comes back, we're making you come back.
Sounds great. Thank you.
I wish I knew how to say goodbye in Japanese, but I didn't write it down.
Sayonara.
Oh, that's right.